Okay, so now we're doing a timeline, and a timeline is a document that you're going to get from the Market Center intranet. And so we need to go back to mykw.com.
Okay.
And yes, this is a lot of back and forth, and when command is fully operational, I'm sure that this gets more consolidated. So for the time being, it feels a little like, oh my God, a lot of back and forth here. Just bear with us until, you know, we're done building command.
Yes.
Yeah. So, all right. So to get to these Market Center documents that we now want to access, we go to our intranet, right?
Yes. Yes.
And to get to the documents, again, we hit the Market Center button.
Yes.
Do you want to do this? Follow me along.
Well, it's, you know what I did this morning, and I pulled up,
Okay.
I pulled up a timeline, and I just filled in the very beginning, and then I just stopped and figured I'd wait.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to, for the purpose of our video here, go to Documents.
Okay.
And I'm going to show everybody that here is a tab called Escrow Timeline, and you want to pull the KWRM timeline. And it drops it here, and it's going to open up as an Excel document.
Yes.
It may work in Numbers, which is the Apple version if you do not have Microsoft Office.
I have Excel. Yeah.
Okay, great. If I highly recommend everybody get Excel because it's this doesn't work so well in Numbers, although I've heard that it's okay. So give it a try. That yellow bar, you have to click the yellow bar at the top that I just clicked in order to enable all the macros and make it all work. And now you want to fill out the various items here to make this timeline reflect what you need to know. Good to know the property address, escrow name, all that. But what's important for this demonstration is the places where you need to fill things in is the yellow items. So we have an acceptance date of yesterday, which is 10/31/19, and we have a closing date of 12/16/19.
So just so you know, yours isn't showing up on the screen.
I'm not sure. Okay. So how do I switch that? Stop the share, go to share again, and go to that and share. How's that?
There.
All right,
yes.
Thank you. All right, so I was talking about when there's a yellow bar that appears up here, you got to click enable, and the important things for you to fill out are these the yellow column here.
Okay.
And notice that the order of the timeline is by the contract paragraph right here, this column. So what you want to do now is you want to put your contract in front of you, and you're going to go page by page and fill in the number of days that it says in the contract.
Okay.
So if the contract says buyer shall directly deliver a check to escrow by the next business day, that is 1 day, right?
Yes.
And we put in 1, and when you move your cursor, a date appears, right? Which is great.
Cool. Yes.
And this date actually has a color, and if you look down here to the legend, it's telling us that the red type means that this item is due soon. Yes, it's due today. And then we have an additional deposit due. Now, the additional deposit is usually dependent on J1, which is what it says right here, right?
Yes, yes.
So if your additional deposit is 2 business days after acceptance of J1,
yes,
then we want to go down to J1 and we're going to fill in J1. What is the number of days due on your J1? And that would be, I think, page, what page is that?
Page 8.
That is page 8.
And my J1 is 14 days after the acceptance date.
So 14, we're going to put in 14. And now we have a date there. So now when we scroll back to the top and we say the additional deposit is due 2 days later, we just put in 2 days and look what we get.
Oh my God, this is so cool.
Right, except this is now telling me by the color, right? I go, what does that color mean? I go down here and go, oh dear, this date falls on a weekend. Right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
what kind of a day of a weekend is that? Because I'm going to make my client bring it in beforehand.
Okay, that's a Saturday, so should we say Friday?
I'm going to change this and make it one day.
Okay.
Now, technically, however, the contract legally says any day that falls on a weekend shall be moved to the following business day. So that would make it Monday.
Okay.
However, I'd rather get my client to get my money in early, so I'm going to remind myself to do this to get my client to get it in early.
Okay.
Right? It's called client management. However,
Yeah.
I need to remember that I did this. So somewhere in the back of my head, or I might just make a note here and said 2 days equals Saturday.
Oh, you're putting a note there on the side. Okay.
Yeah, I just made myself a note to remind, kind of let me know that that's what I've done.
Okay. Oh
All
my
right.
God, so much easier.
And then the next item is C 2.3. Well, what in the heck is a C 2.3? That's a reminder when the balance of the down payment is due. So when is the balance of my down payment due, which is shortly before closing? So I might remind my buyer 10 days before closing that it's time to think about moving their money and having it available.
Okay.
So every time I've built in a reminder into the timeline, I've said so. Okay? So you see these reminders here, you see the word reminder, right?
Yeah.
And that's just, you want to ignore them, you want to put NA, you don't care about those reminders, that's up to you, or you're doing a listing and it's none of your business, that's fine. Just put NA.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you have a PV system that is part of this?
No.
No, so we're going to put NA. And now we've got no PV system, NA. And now do you have inventory?
No.
No inclusions. So we're going to put NA and no inclusion list is due, or
I mean, so now let me ask you this. I mean, as far as inventory, I mean, it's just the appliances.
well, no, my question is, what does your section E4 say?
E4 says NA, there's no inventory of furnishings.
That's correct. So are appliances inventory?
No.
No, they're not. We consider appliances fixtures and they go with the house, right? So you should have had those checked in E2 or E1.
Yes, I did.
Right,
yes.
So that wouldn't be here. Great. Okay. So yeah, we are now moving to F2, which is the closing date, and we already know what that is. So let's just see, what is that? You said 60 days or 45?
45.
45. Let's see if, now see, the calculation here is the 15th, but you already figured out that that's a weekend, yeah?
Yeah.
So is that a Saturday or a Sunday?
Well, that's weird. When I put in 45 days, oh, wait, I put it on the wrong thing. Never mind.
So here we need to check, right? So we're going to take a look and say, well, what is December 15th is a Sunday? So we're going to make it 46 days because we need to close on a Monday, not on a Sunday.
Okay.
Now let me tell you a little trick here.
Yes.
When you close on a Monday, the bank funds on Friday. Your buyer is paying interest Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. in order to close on a Monday. If you
Oh,
can get the seller to agree to close on Friday, but you have to put that in writing in an addendum or in an amendment. You would have to amend the contract and get everybody to agree to do this.
okay.
Okay? But that's just a little trick that no sense your buyer paying interest for 3 days that they don't take possession of the property.
Okay.
All right. Do we have a closing date extension?
Right to extend would be 10 days.
So we put in 10 days, and we see here, it'll calculate that for you, right? Because it's dependent upon F2.
Yes.
And then we have another reminder. This is about the preliminary title report. In other words, if you haven't received a title report in maybe 5 or 7 days, you might want to call escrow and say, what's up? I haven't seen a title report.
Okay.
It's just a reminder, and I like to put 7 days there.
Okay.
So then we have a preliminary title report is review and approval is due 7 days later. Now it's going to use my estimated delivery date here, right? As 7 days. Either I get it or I'm going to follow up, right? There is no delivery date in the contract for a title report because that's escrow's deliverance. So there's nobody there. We're not held to that because a title report might be a little harder to get, right, on challenging properties or something. So escrow might need a little more time. So that's why there's no date there. So I'm just using this 7 days as an estimated date. And then your buyer usually has 7 days to review that. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then if there's any problems with it, your seller has how many days?
On G3,
Yeah. It's G2C actually.
7.
7. Okay, you gave the seller 7 days to cure any defects. And then G3 is
15 days.
all right. This is delivery of tenancy. That's like for the buyer to decide whether they're going to be tenants in severalty or tenants in common, and that's between them and escrow.
Escrow. Okay.
Yeah. So we have that at you have that at 15 days, right?
Yes.
And then do you have a cash contingency?
Yes.
So your H1 does not apply, so that's NA. And you've got H2, so you've got a cash contingency. And when does the buyer have to provide evidence of the cash funds becoming available soon?
Within 7 days after the acceptance date.
7 days after acceptance, okay. And then now we skip to H4, right? Because H4 are the due dates for the financing, and your buyer's getting a loan, right?
Yes.
Okay, so H4A says, when is a pre-qualification letter due from the buyer?
5 days after acceptance.
Right. Now tell me something. Did your buyer already provide a pre-qualification letter?
Yes, and it's been sent to escrow.
Right. So now the question is, was the pre-qualification letter that was originally provided for the amount that the house is being sold for?
The original one was for the amount of their first offer, and then the lender amended it for the amount of the counter.
Okay, so just so you know, we don't usually ask the lender to amend for a counter. And the reason we build 5 days into delivery of a pre-qualification letter into the contract is so that you can then have 5 days to deliver the amended pre-qualification letter. Because sometimes you go back and forth 2 or 3 times on price, and you don't want to ask for a pre-qualification letter every time. You'll go nuts, right? And so you just let the a seller is going to trust that if you could afford it at $420, you can afford it at $450.
Okay.
And so they're going to let you negotiate and then deliver a new letter. So that's what this slot is about. So you've already done that. And now we've got a reminder here. And the reminder is, has the appraisal been scheduled? So both you as the buyer's rep is going to want to know, has the appraisal been scheduled? And the listing agent is going to want to like follow up and go, so I haven't heard from an appraiser yet. When is the appraisal coming, right?
Okay.
So it's just a reminder. So for me, it depends on how long the escrow is. But again, if I haven't heard of an appraisal appointment within 10 days, I'm going to start calling around to the lender and find out.
Is that's who schedules the appraisal is the lender, correct?
So the lender has to go through an appraisal management company, and the appraisal management company contacts an appraiser, chooses the appraiser, and the appraiser contacts the listing agent to make an appointment. So it's the listing agent who's going to know if an appraisal has been scheduled. Yeah.
Okay.
So the first call as the buyer's agent you want to do is call the listing agent and say, hey, have you heard from the appraiser? And, and that'll tell you.
Okay. Makes
sense. This is contingent on the next item, which is why it shows up as value here. So here we go. So our conditional loan approval is due to the seller at what?
And that's H4B.
That's H4B.
Is the H4B is 30 days after acceptance.
All right, so we put in 30 days.
Oh, that must be on a weekend. And that's on a Saturday.
Right. That's on a Saturday, so that's now going to move to 32.
Okay. Okay.
And then we have another reminder, buyer to select an insurance company. And you go, what? Ooh, where? Well, buyers who buy by cash don't have a lender to remind them to get insurance.
Okay.
And we used to do this, and then the lenders took it over because ultimately the lender who is going to provide the loan has to have proof of insurance. So the loan officers are the ones who started saying, hey, we need to make sure we get insurance. But I nevertheless like to ask my clients, are you sure, or who would you like your insurance with? Do you want me to contact the company that does your car insurance? How would you like to handle this? And they go, oh my God, I haven't even thought about insurance. And so you can get the thought started, and you can coordinate with the lender if you like. Call the lender and said they'd like to use ABC Insurance. Here's the phone number if you want to contact them. It's just being helpful.
Okay.
So I might ask myself that again at 20 days prior to closing.
Okay.
And now we have, when is final loan approval due?
Final loan approval is H4C. It's 7 days prior to closing.
7 days. So we put in 7. And now the next paragraphs are about the seller's disclosure. So when is the seller's disclosure due?
15 days after the receipt.
No. The seller's disclosure, I-1B.
Oh, sorry, I skipped down. Seller's disclosure is 7 days after acceptance.
7 days. And then when is the receipt due from the buyer? It's just read your contract. Just go read your contract.
3 days.
3 days. Great. And when is the seller's disclosure approval or signature due by the buyer?
10 days.
You've got 10 days in there. Okay. And now notice both of these fall on a weekend. Does that matter?
No.
That's correct. It does not. We run our transactions with due dates on weekends. It's only escrow and the lender who don't do things on, things can't be done on weekends.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's okay. All right. Property inspection, we already know, has 14 days. And then we have J3, the buyer to complete the final walkthrough. When is that to be done?
J3 is the final walkthrough is 4 days prior to closing.
4 days. And then when are final repairs to be done and release of funds for repairs?
J4, completed by closing date.
Well,
Wait,
by closing, so 0, closing date. And then we have J8 and J9, and these are reminders. Seller to schedule a cleaning and removal of items. If you were the seller, when would you remind them to do that?
on J8, 5 days prior to closing.
No, this is a reminder.
Oh, a reminder.
Yeah, so when do you think they should hire somebody to clean and do the removal?
At least 10 days prior to closing.
I would say give it for 2 weeks. People
Okay.
aren't waiting around for us to call them to say, could you clean a whole house next week?
Okay.
Okay, so the more in advance you schedule people, the more easy it's going to be to have that done. So
Okay.
in terms of you're representing the buyer, however, I would ask the listing agent 10 days before, have you hired a cleaner?
Okay.
Right? And now
Yes.
you've got Melanie Vitale. She's going to be on it, so that's
Yes.
good. But
Yes.
you never know who you're working with. And so
Yes.
a friendly question to just checking, have you hired a cleaner yet? And when is the cleaning crew going to be cleaning the house, right? Couldn't hurt if you ask in a nice way.
Yes.
Same thing here, is there pet treatment due, and has that been ordered?
No, there's no pets.
No pets, so that's an NA. And now we've got J8. When are things to be removed from the property?
5 days
Okay.
prior to closing.
5 days prior to closing. And the cleaning is to be completed?
5 days prior to closing.
Right. And now we might check here, is the cleaning supposed to be done by a professional or not?
We clicked on that no, just because,
Okay. That's
yeah.
okay. So
Okay.
I'm going to just show you how to do that here. So if we go to the beginning of this line, the first, because this is an Excel spreadsheet, right? So we need to click our mouse into this field where the beginning of the line is. And it allows me to go up here and go to the thing, and I put in an X so that I know it's no.
Okay.
And now I've got a no marked here. See that?
Yes, that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. And now we go to J10, release of funds for pet treatment is not applicable. And then we go to another reminder, schedule of staking and survey. So again, when should a seller schedule a staking and survey if it were applicable? Within 7 days.
Within 7 days after acceptance date?
Yes, surveys take time. And in order to deliver a survey 20 days or 15 days before closing, the surveyor is going to need at least 2 weeks before they get out there. It takes them a week to do the survey and write it all up. You're talking, you need to do that right away if you're the listing agent. Yeah.
Okay.
But here, this is not applicable.
Yeah.
And a survey is not applicable. And now, are you having a termite inspection done?
No.
Okay, so not applicable. Okay, but normally we say a termite inspection is to be selected within 7 days.
Yes.
And then again, there's a reminder for the seller's agent to schedule a termite inspection. They aren't waiting. So the sooner you schedule it, you can always move it and change it, but schedule it. So I would put 7 days there if I were the listing agent. And the termite report is usually reported to the buyer at 14 days prior to closing. And tenting is scheduled. Well, we can leave that for later because right now we don't know about a tenting.
Okay.
All right. And now we've got condo and subdivision documents. When are those supposed to be delivered to the buyer? This is paragraph M1, item D.
10 days after acceptance.
10. So we put in 10 there, and that falls on a weekend. Is that okay?
If they're delivered to the buyer, yes.
Mm-hmm. And condo subdivision docs receipt. When does the buyer have to provide a receipt?
Within 3 days.
3 days later. And then when are those documents to be approved by the buyer?
Within 15 days.
15 days. So most of us fill our contracts out for 10 days on that, but you've given your buyer 15. Okay.
Okay. And that's what Melanie told me too. She said normally she puts a shorter time period just to get it
it's kinda
done.
long, but
Okay.
you know, it's okay. Leasehold documents, this isn't leasehold, so we say not applicable, and rental documents. Are you taking over any rentals?
No.
Okay, so not applicable and not applicable. Great. Down here is a reminder to submit your green sheet and to give notice to transfer utilities. So that's a good reminder, and you might want to do that a couple of days before closing, right? To give,
Okay.
to talk to your buyer about changing utilities.
Okay.
I'm going to make that 5 days prior to closing.
Okay.
But be aware that Spectrum, if the cable is turned off in the unit and you want to turn it back on, if you don't do it in the same day, it can take up to 10 days to turn Spectrum back on.
Okay.
So always good to know. So you could put 10 days for yourself here if you know that the unit is vacant and the cable isn't on.
Okay.
Okay, and do we have anything else? No, then we've got some spares in case we've got, you know, items in queue. And we can go to the top of our spreadsheet here, and we're going to go to this little arrow. You see this little arrow here?
Yes.
You click on that, and it says sort from smallest to largest, or small by numbers from up or down, or it says something different in Max.
Yes, my ascending or descending.
Great. So you're going to go, I believe you want to go descending order. Oh, excuse me. I'm in the wrong column. I'm in the wrong column. Don't go there.
Shit.
Sorry. Stop that.
Sorry.
Did you do it already?
Yeah. How do I go
back? You did it already. You go up here in Excel. This is a wonderful tool in Excel. Where are we? Where am I? Right up here at the very top. Do you see this go back button? Hit the back button, right? And you hit that back button and you can go, it'll take you back. My apologies. It's the due date column that we want to put into chronological order. So go to the due date column, go to that little arrow, and now it says sort by, and mine says oldest to newest. So we're going to go to oldest to newest. And now your entire timeline sorts into chronological order.
Okay, so I would click descending.
Yes. Did that work for you?
No.
So go to the little.
Oh, wait.
You have to click the word descending.
No, I needed to click ascending.
Okay, great. Ascending.
So,
now we know for Mac users, it's ascending.
Yes.
So you want it in the oldest date first and the latest date right later.
Yes.
So you now have your timeline in chronological order. This is very cool. So now I'm going to show you something else. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So when you've received your seller's disclosure, where am I? Seller's disclosure. Right here. Let's say you received that on November. Whoops, what did I do here? November. What is it doing to me? November 4th. Let's say it came in after 3 days.
Okay.
And you can expect that. When you do that, your deliverable for the seller's disclosure receipt now changes. And
okay.
So does your due date for when your final seller's disclosure is due.
Okay.
So when you update in the column here,
Yes.
and further things are dependent upon that date, the system will change the due date for you.
That is so cool.
That makes working in the system totally worthwhile.
Yes.
So having this document on your desktop while you're running that, right? Create a file on your desktop called your buyer or whatever you want to call it. Put this timeline in there and run this timeline.
Okay.
However, the timeline needs to go into your command file now so that your broker can always see what the timeline says.
Okay.
And then as you update your timeline, like once a week, it's great to put in an updated timeline because you can now delete the old one and put a new one in.
So now let me ask this. If I'm updating it on my Excel sheet that I've got on my desktop, will it automatically update on the one that I've got in command?
No, what I just said was you need to upload this into command.
Yes.
And then once a week, you need to upload a new version.
A new version. Okay.
Just delete the one that's in there and upload a new one. No,
Okay.
This Excel spreadsheet is not tied to anything.
Okay.
It's just on your desktop.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense.
You can also, I also recommend you keep this document as well as the next one we're going to cover on your desktop. You can just call them KWRM escrow forms.
Okay.
And you've got all these things that you need to go to the intranet for because you're going to start doing a lot of transactions and you're going to need the timeline again and again. So just keep them.
Okay.
All right?
Yes.
Very cool. I'm going to stop our recording.